Hello and a big welcome back to the Wee Laura channel. Today we're going to be making an absolutely delicious summer strawberry tart, and we're going to be using up all of those delicious local Scottish strawberries that are available just now. They are so good. So this is a perfect recipe for making in the summer months. For this recipe you're going to need, for the sweet pastry, 2 egg yolks, 4 teaspoons of ice and sugar, 200 grams of plain flour, a pinch of salt, 130 grams of butter, and you might also need 1 to 2 tablespoons of cold water if necessary as well for making the pastry. For the tart filling you're going to need 2 egg yolks, 50 grams of sugar, 30 grams of plain flour, a teaspoon of vanilla essence, 300 ml of whole milk, 2 punnets of strawberries, and that's approximately 700 to 800 grams. And for the tart topping you're going to need a teaspoon of vanilla essence and 6 tablespoons of strawberry jam and some iced sugar as well. So we're going to start this recipe by popping our ice and sugar into the small bowl, and hopefully you won't be spilling it as I am here. So we're popping 4 heaped teaspoons of ice and sugar into our bowl here, and we're just going to sieve that through so that there are no lumps left in the ice and sugar. So if you just push that through the sieve for a minute or so, and then we're going to add our egg yolks to this as well. So if you just pop in your 2 egg yolks into there, so we're not adding the whites at all. So you can use your whites for making something else, like meringue or something. We're just going to mix our egg yolks into our ice and sugar here, just to create a paste. So if you just give that a good mix through until everything is well combined. And then we're going to sieve our flour into our mixing bowl. So I've actually done this in 2 stages here, and I've also added in a pinch of salt as well. So I'm just popping all of the flour through the sieve into the mixing bowl. And I've just put the second half of the flour in as well. So I just did this so that I could get it all sieved through the sieve properly. Just makes it a little bit easier than heaping a big pile of flour into the sieve at once. So once that is all nicely sieved, we're then going to add in our butter. So if you cut it up into small cubes and then just add all of your butter into the flour. And we're then just going to get stuck right in with our hands. Now you can use an electric mixer if you want to, but I just find the best way for making the breadcrumb type consistency that we're looking for is just to use your hands and your fingers. So we're just rubbing all of the butter through with the flour, and we're looking for a breadcrumb type consistency. So we're just going to keep going with that until we have something that looks very similar to breadcrumbs. So it does take a couple of minutes, but it should look something like this when you are finished. A very crummy texture, and we're just going to add our egg yolks and our ice and sugar paste back into our flour and butter mixture. So just make sure that you get all of your egg yolk out of the bowl, because it is essential to get all of it in there. So we're just going to mix that all through together in our hands. And you're looking for a soft dough type consistency, so until we reach that we're going to keep going, but we don't want to work it too much, and we want to keep the kneading quite minimal, so we're just going to knead it quite lightly, but we're looking for a dough type, a soft dough consistency. Now you might also need to add a little bit of water in at this point, so add in a couple of tablespoons if you need to. I didn't need to. My egg yolks were quite large, so I got away with just using the egg yolks. But if you find it's a little dry, then just add in a little tablespoon or 2 of water. So we're just going to combine that all together in our hands, and we should have something that looks a little bit like this. So it's a nice smooth dough that we're looking for, and we don't want to work it too much. We just want to keep the kneading to as minimal a time as possible. And we're then going to pop that back into the bowl once we have our perfect ball. We're going to cling film that up and pop it into the fridge for 30 minutes. So while that's chilling in the fridge, we're going to preheat our oven to 180 now, and we are going to grease up our tart dish that we're using for making our strawberry tart. So you might have like a quiche kind of style of dish. I'm actually using this dish that I got from Lakeland Plastics, where the bottom pops out and it just works really, really well. We're also popping a piece of greaseproof paper on the bottom there as well, just to get the tart off nice and easily. So we're just going to add our flour onto our chopping board. So we're just going to take our dough out of the fridge now, and we are going to roll it out into the correct shape for our tin. So we're looking for something round. Now, I have said before, I am no pastry expert, so if you know how to do things a little bit better than me on the pastry side of things, then by all means go ahead. But this worked perfectly well for me, so we just took it out, rolled it out, we've popped our hand underneath. You can also use your rolling pin to pop underneath the pastry as well to pop it onto the dish, and we're just going to pop that onto our tart tin there as well. So if you just make sure your pastry is in your tin nice and neat, and we're going to make sure that all the sides are covered. If you have any cracks or anything like that, just patch them up with a little bit of extra pastry. And we are just going to make sure that that is all up the sides, and then we're going to trim it off the top. So this is as neat as it's going to get when it comes to me and pastry. But I like things to look quite rustic, so I'm quite happy with this. So if you just smooth down the tops once you have trimmed it off, and then we're just going to pop that pastry aside. And you can use that extra pastry for making small tarts if you want to. And it should look something like this. So this is quite thick. For the tart, I do like to have quite a sturdy pastry just so that I can pop it out the tin to serve it. And we're just going to pop the fork all over the pastry just to give it a few holes for cooking. Now we're going to add our greaseproof paper on top of our pastry, and we're going to fill our pastry with bacon beans. So we're just going to fill our greaseproof paper with our beans. Now I'm just using some old black beans. I use them time and time again, and they work really, really well. Chickpeas would also work really, really well, or you can buy specific bacon beans if you want to go all out. You can get those on Amazon. But just some old bacon beans in the cupboard, dried beans, will do perfectly fine. So we're just going to cut off our excess greaseproof paper there, and we're now ready to go in the oven. So we're going to bake this in the oven for 15 minutes. And we're going to take it out after the 15 minutes, and we're going to remove the beans. So leave it to cool a little bit, or the beans will be very, very hot. We're just going to pop all of our beans back into the jar once they are slightly cooled, so that we can get our pastry out of the tin, or a greaseproof paper out of the tin rather. So I gave up and scooping them out with my hand. I just went and got a huge spoon, which was way easier. And once you have most of your beans out, you can just lift up your greaseproof paper like this as well, so that you can just pop them all back into your jar. And these will cool down and keep for the next time you want to make pastry. So this is what I've been using for making my pastry, and it's been working really, really well for me. And it was super cheap as well. It was just some old dry beans that were going out of date that I decided to keep for pastry. Just make sure you label the jar if you are doing that and you don't use them for something else. So once you have all your beans back in your jar and out of the tart, we're then going to pop our tart back into the oven for 5 to 7 minutes. We're just going to close our lid on our beans and just pop those back into the cupboard for next time. So these work really, really well, and it's such a cheap solution. So we're going to take our tart out of the oven and leave that to cool. And while that's cooling, we are going to make our custard for the inside of our tart. So we're going to pop our 2 egg yolks into our pan. Now our pan is not on any kind of heat at the moment, so just do all your mixing off of the heat for this stage. We're going to add in our sugar, and we're going to give that a good stir through with the whisk. So if you just stir your egg yolks into your sugar just until everything is well combined, and we're then going to add in our flour. And we are going to mix that through again and add in our vanilla essence as well. So we're just going to pop our vanilla essence in. So I had actually literally almost run out of vanilla essence at this point, but I did get my whole teaspoon of vanilla essence in there, and luckily I had another one in the cupboard as well. So just make sure you get your teaspoon of vanilla essence in there, because it does really help with the flavour. It's really, really nice. So we're just going to mix that all through until it is combined, and then we're going to add in a splash of milk. So we don't want to add all the milk at once because we want to combine it in stages. So we're just going to give that a really good whisk through with the milk until it is combined. And if you just keep adding in more and more milk until you have added in all of your milk, and it should look something like this. And now we're going to pop it onto the heat. So what we're going to do is bring it up to the boil and cook it on a very low to medium heat for around about 3 minutes. Now you want to keep stirring all the time with the whisk. It's very, very important. When I was filming this, I actually stopped stirring for just a few seconds to sort the camera, and it had burnt to the bottom. So just make sure your heat is not too high as well. You really want it at a medium to low kind of heat. And it should be around 3 minutes. It might be a little bit longer, but this is the consistency that you are after. It's like a really thick custard, so you're looking for something like that. So once you have reached that thick custard kind of texture, we're then going to pour it straight into our tart. And we're going to take it off the heat, and then we're then going to pour it straight into our tart so that it sets inside the tart. So our tart should be quite cool by this point, because while we've been making our custard, it has been cooling to the side. And we're just going to pour all of that into the tart there. So just make sure you get all of it out of the pan and into the tart, because it's so delicious. You do not want to leave any of it in the pan. It's so, so delicious. So we're just going to spread that around just before it starts to set, because it does tend to set once it cools down. So you don't want to leave it in the pan, and you want to get it straight into the tart straight away. So if you just spread it around with a spatula a little bit, and it should look something like this. So we're just going to leave that for about 10-15 minutes until it is quite firm to the touch, and then we're going to add on our sliced strawberries. So we're just going to add all of our strawberries onto our tart like this. So if you just pop all of your strawberries onto your tart. Now I have actually sliced these strawberries in half. You can slice them in quarters, it really doesn't matter, but I think the halves look really pretty, and it just works really well with the jam this way. So you can slice them whatever way you want, but this is the best way that I have found. So next what we're going to do is add all of our strawberry jam into our pan. It's so, so delicious. One of my favourite strawberry jams at the moment. And it just worked really, really well for this tart. So we're just going to be melting our strawberry jam down so that it is a runny consistency to pop onto the top of the tart. So if you just get all of your jam into the pan. Now I know I said 6 tablespoons, but I really have put in like heaped tablespoons into here. My measurements are never 100% accurate when it comes to tablespoons, you might have noticed. So we're just going to heat our jam up in the pan, and we're not going to bring it to a boil or anything like that, just on a very medium to low heat until it is a runny consistency like this. Now you can brush all the jam onto the strawberries like this, or you can also just use a spoon and go straight in there with the strawberry jam and just pop it all over the strawberries. So you want to get all the nooks and crannies with the spoon. So if you just use your spoon to put the jam all over the place, and then you can use your brush afterwards to spread the jam around a little bit more. So you want to do this all over your tart, and it should look something like this when it is finished. And you can also leave it a little bit to cool as well, and the jam will start to solidify a little bit again, and it just helps to firm everything up. And this is one of the most delicious recipes to make at this time of year, especially when we have so many lovely local Scottish grown strawberries available, and they taste so amazing. I really do not enjoy strawberries out of season. They are just way too good in the summer. It's definitely worth the wait. So if you just give it a little sprinkle with ice and sugar over the top as well, and you are ready to serve. You can also pop it back in the fridge at this point if you want to serve it chilled, or if you want to keep it for the next day. And it does keep really well. You can pop it in the fridge and cover it in cling film and it'll keep to the next day. So once your custard is nice and firm, it should look something like this, and it should slice up really well. And you can serve it with ice cream on a hot summer's day, or with some whipped cream. Or if you're having a rainy Scottish day, you could serve it up with more hot custard. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I hope you find a good source of local strawberries for your delicious summer tart. If you took a photo of your strawberry tart, please feel free to tag me on Instagram and I'll share it on my stories. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a big thumbs up. And if you click that subscribe button and the little bell next to it, I'll see you guys again soon. So take care, lots of love, bye bye.